So welcome everybody. We are really pleased to have you here joining us today for the future of cyber resilience in the UK. This is a really fantastic webinar that Tech UK are pleased to host, and this webinar is being sponsored by SCC and HPE. And my name is Heather, by the way, and I am Associate Director for Central Gov and Education at Tech UK. And my role here really is just to get you ready and introduce you to our presenters today. So in an effort to get ready, please, everyone, ensure that your microphones are on mute and that maybe even turn the cameras off to help focus the mind if you're not the speaker. Um, we have some time at the end of the webinar for Q&A, but if you are definitely welcome to put any questions or comments in the chat. And if it's something kind of desperate and really pertinent to what the speaker is talking about, please also feel free to raise your hand at the time and the speaker will get to you to get to your question. I think that's kind of all you need from me today, and I'm really pleased to hand it over to Ian to kick us off. Ian?
Thank you, Heather, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of Cyber Resilience in the UK, hosted by SCC and in partnership with HPE Zerto. So today we bring together industry leaders to discuss how organisations can strengthen their cyber resilience and secure their digital assets in an increasingly complex threat landscape. My name is Ian Russell. I'm the Sales Director for Strategic Accounts within Public Sector at SCC. I am, sorry, if I move the slide on, Egon, sorry. I'm delighted to be joined by Stuart Wareham, our Alliances Manager at SCC. I'm delighted to introduce Egan van Dongen, the Global Data Protection Architect for HPE Zerto. These experts bring a wealth of experience in strategic IT solutions, alliances management, and global data protection, ensuring that you receive practical insights and actionable guidance. Next slide, please. So just before we start, I wanted to kind of frame the SCC and HPE Zerto relationship. So SCC is a leading strategic partner supporting customers across Europe, with over 7,000 colleagues and more than 45 offices in the UK, France, Spain, Romania, and Vietnam. And with over 50 years of experience, SCC is recognised as the largest privately owned technology group in Europe and a top 10 UK reseller. SCC's multi-award-winning managed services and data centres combined with multilingual service centres deliver robust solutions for complex business needs, and SCC's commitment to innovation and customer experience is reflected in our partnerships with over 50 leading vendors and our consistent growth in revenue and market presence. So for 4 decades, SCC and HPE have worked together in partnership to deliver cutting-edge technology solutions, with Zerto at the forefront of cyber resilience and data protection. This enduring partnership has enabled SCC to offer comprehensive integrated solutions that address the evolving challenges of cybersecurity, data protection, and business continuity. So together, SCC and HPE Zerto have helped organisations across industries to modernise their data protection strategies, recover rapidly from ransomware attacks, and optimise their IT environments for performance and compliance. Today's session will really provide information around the latest trends and threats in cyber resilience, provide real-world customer success stories, and really cover the 3 key pillars of HPE's cyber resilience programme: replicate and detect, isolate, unlock, and test and recovery. We encourage you to engage with our speakers, ask questions, and discover how SCC and HPE Zerto, the partnership, can empower your organisation to thrive in a rapidly changing digital landscape. Stuart, Egon, over to you.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you there, Ian. Egon, next slide, please. So Egon, we are presented with challenges everywhere.
Yeah, and before we're going to make this into a very scary story, actually, this is all about what can we do? How can we help each other? How can we make sure that data stays secure and do it in a way where people are totally in control of their own data? But at the end of the day, looking at this slide, challenges are constantly evolving, right? We've got attackers that are increasingly exploiting stolen credentials, doing things that we do not want them to do, but it still happens. And the thing is that with this, they are trying to bypass your perimeter, they are trying to bypass your defenses and target, encrypt your backups. And if we're looking at the paradox of paying the ransom, that is something that a lot of companies already have faced, a lot of companies will face in the future, but it's far from a guaranteed fix. Nearly half of the paying organizations still fail to recover their critical data, and underscoring actually the need for an isolated and verifiable backup. And that will get us into the focus of today, because at the end of the day, the cost of the disruptions, although dropped from 2.5 million to 1.5 million on average per attack from 24 to 25, the financial impact is still there. And with that comes a lot of downtime and data loss, which is also costly. And on top of that, we have a lot of compliance pressure. Right now, the CSR bill in the UK is at the House of Commons. It will have an impact, but we already had it with GDPR, HIPAA, DORA, NIS2, and so on. So looking at that, if I zoom in a little bit more, I can actually say that the risk is very real. 59% of organizations have already been attacked by ransomware. And it's not just one attack. Sometimes they get attacked 2, 3, and even 4 times. We've seen a lot of companies being attacked after they recovered. Why? Because at the end of the day, they did not take the measures to make sure that whatever happens, this won't happen again. No, they just went on doing their business as normal, and that is where we are facing a lot of issues. On top of that, 94% of those attacks were actually facing the backup environments. That is the place where you are sure that you have secured your data, which 9 out of 10 times is not the case. And again, as I said, the 1.5 million is an average cost per attack. But all the while, the data protection challenges are increasing because data is everywhere. You are constantly getting new workloads. You are constantly facing those regulations that are changing. But on top of that, you have the operational complexity. You've got a lot of separate tools and silos, and a lot of organizations have organically grown. So sometimes they do not know the connection between VMs, between servers, but also where some data is critical, where some is not. So as we speak with customers across the globe, we consistently hear that they are facing a wave of new threats, new workloads, and tightening regulations. That means that we need to grapple those legacy challenges. And when it comes to those threats, cyber threats such as ransomware are standing out in this case. In 24, 59% of those organizations were attacked. But again, this number is increasing every single day. But it's not just about the new threats. We recognize that the data and the workload landscape is changing too. Data now lives everywhere, across loosely controlled devices, at the edge, in the data centers, and in the cloud. So we need to take an holistic approach on what we actually are protecting. And that can only be done if you build a strong foundation. And I'm focusing actually on that foundation on 4 pillars. And the first pillar is obviously prevention. That means that the most successful defense against the ransomware is the one where the attack never happens. At the perimeter, you need to prevent yourself, but also within the perimeter, you need to protect yourself. And that protection always is something that is a must. Endpoints, including servers, are the primary destination for ransomware actors. So ensure that they are well defended. But if it happens, you want to know that it's happening and you want to take action to it. So that means that you also need to detect and respond to that attack. How do you attack to it? And how are you going to respond to it? You can only do that by preparing yourself and planning for that attack, simulating that attack, making sure that you know your SLAs, you know your RPOs, you know your RTOs, and you need to make sure that you take quality backups and regular practices to restoring that data to accelerate recovery when you get hit. So leading that into this, Stuart and I were thinking it's time to reimagine data protection. It's a different approach. As I said, we're going to do it a little bit holistically. This is the bridge between data protection challenges for different approaches. Because when we look at what we achieved currently, we've got 4 different companies in here, where Grey County, for instance, was in Canada, and they achieved a 6-second workload RPO that enabled them to modernize their data protection strategy and ensured continuity of services to their residents. Their service range from road management and welfare services to emergency management, just by protecting and constantly monitoring the recovery of that. So they modernized their data protection for their residents. And that means that they were actually having a 6-second RPO. That is a lot less data loss. We're not talking hours, we're not talking days.
I mean,
Second case.
Sorry again, I was going to say, if you consider what happened to M&S last year, I believe running up to Christmas, they were still only, I think it's 70% of online services from an attack that happened 6 months, I think 7-8 months prior. So that was their, the inability to actually recover quickly. This was the biggest challenge. So I think this is kind of a headline, really, isn't it? This is the ability to minimize data loss and recover as quickly as possible. This is kind of the slide you end with, but we really wanted to kind of put this message at the front and then kind of really then challenge ourselves. Well, how do we do this? Because I think it's bold statements to say 6-second workload recovery, and now we need to demonstrate that.
Thank you. So the second one actually is a company called Tenkate. Tenkate makes fireman suits, originally coming from the Netherlands, now headquartered in the US. They actually had 2 attacks. One prior to buying a solution from HPE to help them in their ransomware recovery, and one after. The one prior actually gave them a more than 24-hour data loss, and they were about 4 weeks on recovery. After they bought the solution from HPE, they got attacked again. Now they did not have any data loss, and they had a sub 10-minute recovery from a ransomware attack. That means that there is no impact to the business, there's no impact to the revenue, and there's also no impact to the IT infrastructure because they were staying in total control. If we're looking at the third one, that's actually SAIL. And SAIL is a steel authority in India, and that is no longer held back by the weight of legacy. They realized a 10 times faster backup for the SAP environments, which is fundamental to their ability to optimize and expand steel production for the global market. So actually having the different approach, doing it in a better way with faster hardware, which is also constantly checking your backups, delivers you that outcome. And then finally, we've got Sharbrooke Brank. It's in the UK. They have implemented an advanced hybrid cloud infrastructure to strengthen their governance and enable faster banking services. And they are benefiting from a 96% capacity saving for their data protection storage. Those are 4 examples that we are actually achieving with the holistic approach. That means we are all together, not only the customer, not only HPE, but SCC also, together get a look at the infrastructure and have a look at how we can actually improve this. But the improvement actually is not on just one simple location. Because if we're looking at a landscape, we'll see a source and we'll see a target. Because reimagining data protection means that we are taking that holistic approach, one that actually supports any workload in any location with an SLA requirement from edge to cloud and from source to target. And by source, we mean production workloads, production data, and production infrastructure. By target, we mean where the data can be recovered both from and to. And this holistic approach is the HPE data protection approach. That means that you can proactively plan for threats from bad actors and disasters alike. We also reduce the human error through the data protection task automation. We mitigate infrastructure failures for many types and magnitudes. And finally, we all need to do that while meeting the business demands for both performance and economics. And that's an interesting one, because how do you do that? And we have an approach where it's a layered approach, not just simple by focusing on, again, one source, but multi, because you need to do cyber resilience. And on top of that, it needs to be high performance, and it needs to integrate into your own ecosystem. So if we're looking at that, if I'm looking at cyber resilience, I'm giving the unfortunate threat of the environment and the severe consequences of those threats. And cyber resilience is fundamental in this. It cannot be addressed as an afterthought or a point product. At HPE, it's persuasive that a set of capabilities, meaning that our holistic approach is in there. If we're doing a one step in there, the speed is essential in the modern data protection. Because I can actually state a case where there was a bad actor that actually hacked a bank. He got access to it, and he could roam around freely. And that roaming around freely gave him the time to actually scope out the complete bank. And the bank had 65,000 VMs. The bad actor actually went undetected for a long period of time and eventually got his hands on almost every single VM. But revealing himself took only 3 seconds. So within 3 seconds, the bad actor held the bank hostage on all 65,000 VMs. So he could do it fast. That means that actually we also need to make sure that we can respond very fast. And speed is essential in the modern data protection. While this may not be the first thing that comes to mind in association with data protection, operational agility and velocity is increasingly being demanded in this one. Now, finally, looking at the integrated ecosystem, the holistic approach brings together best-in-class technologies, our own and those of strategic software partners. This forms a tightly integrated suite of data protection capabilities tailored to your needs beyond these partnerships. But we also interoperate with a wide range of data protection independent software vendors to allow for choice. So let's explore each of these foundational attributes a little bit more into detail. Because if I, again, looking at source and target, we are seeing this as pillars. And the source has robust access controls and comprehensive encryption and policy-based protection. But again, at the target, you need to make sure that everything becomes immutable and air-gapped, and that you're automating your backup and recovery. Yes, also automating recovery. And that all needs to be done at a low RPO and RTO. And again, I'm stating it in the bottom, protection is only as strong as the ability to recover safely. So if you're not testing this and you are certain of the outcome of your recovery, it's not as strong at all. So it's also depending on how and where the data is backed up to, and it determines your resilience. So let me have a look a little bit finally into this concept a little bit more, because if we're looking at backup and replication speed, recovery time and readiness, you see a lot of different topics. And those topics are actually more into the instant production for low RPOs, but also the highly efficient data reduction. Because at the end of the day, you're not just buying your different solutions to just consume. No, it has to be economically viable. So the speed of cyber forensics is one of those, and that is another critical dimension. This is actually the ability to quickly identify what is safe to restore to avoid reintroducing compromised data. This applies whether facing ransomware, malware, or actually corruption. whether it's from an external or internal source, the bad actor is always 9 out of 10 times coming from a human error or an infrastructure failure. So cyber forensic demands a different performance profile from target storage than it was actually in the past. And that makes a whole big difference. So source and target, again, I'm recapping this, has a lot of impact. It's not only on one side. It's, yes, we're running a lot of production on the source side. Yes, we also need performance on the target side, but you need to converge those solutions. And we need to make sure that the solution is tailored to your company. But one thing stands out in this whole short story, and that is that protection capabilities needs to work together. It needs to do it for any workload, for any location, and for any SLA. And it cannot be accomplished with one point product. Again, as Stuart already is saying in the chat, if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat or raise your hand. So let me have a look on how actually HPE is achieving this. And we started by looking at, okay, the threat landscape, how does this look like? What do we actually need? Where do we need to help? And we came up with 4 major issues where companies were struggling with. And that is actually, we never know how you are being attacked. It's not a consistent same attack. It's always different points that are attacked. And when you are attacked, we cannot predict upfront the blast radius. And if you have that already, then it's also very hard to say, okay, this point in time, this backup or this replication point in time is clean. Because you do not know how the attack happened. You do not know what the blast radius was. So how can you actually determine what your clean recovery point is? And that all results into a lot of unacceptable data loss and downtime. And actually, this is where the NIST cybersecurity framework helps you, because you need to identify, you need to protect, you need to detect, respond, and recover. So looking at this and these issues, looking at the NIST framework, we came up with 3 pillars where we think we can help a lot of customers. And those 3 are actually in there. And let me first zoom into the first one, and that is the replicate and detect. So replicate and detect actually means that we do data replication continuously. That means that every single block that is changing within the VM is instantly being replicated to the target. In that replication process, you need to do threat detection. So implementing an advanced monitoring system to detect anomalies and potential threats in real time. Utilizing AI and machine learning for enhanced threat intelligence and predictive analytics. And you continue that monitoring, maintaining constant vigilance over network activities to quickly identify and address security breaches. Now, if I'm looking at this threat landscape, let me describe this in an official attack. This is the timeline for a meter attack framework. An attacker always gets initial access, and that can be by a user clicking a link or actually a hack that is happening, and he tries to get command and control. That command and control means that he needs to get some kind of admin password or whatever to get to different systems. And as soon as he has that, he will make his lateral movement into the different infrastructure. Next step will be that it will actually disable your security and backup agents. And all that in a time frame of 5 to 9 days. So that's actually pretty fast. But if we're looking at that, as soon as he's done that, he will start encrypting VMs. And the question then is, how do you detect that encryption and know if recovery is needed? As I said before, the identifying and detecting is something that we are very good at. And this is being done by Zerto software. And as soon as we see a suspicious anomaly, in that replication process, there is also a journal being kept. And we are just tagging a point where we see the suspicious anomaly happening. That means everything before that, so the anomaly is happening, for instance, at 9:53. That means that everything before that is something that is still clean. Everything after that is something that is not clean. And we are continuously replicating. And as you see on the right side, there is a customer that actually gave us a quote where they are saying, okay, it puts them in a much stronger position to both identify and mitigate ransomware software attacks. Now, looking at this, and that is just replicating your data, backing up your data, detecting if it's being attacked, yes or no. But the second step is just as important, because we need to isolate and lock. Now, system isolation actually means that you create a segmented network environment to contain threats and prevent lateral movement. If you use air gapping in that and other isolation techniques, you actually can also secure your high value assets. If you also put in access control in there, you enforce strict access management policies, including multi-factor authentication and role-based access. Regularly review those and update those permissions to ensure only authorized personnel have access. And finally, in it isolate and lock, you also have incident containment, implementing automated lockdown procedures to swiftly isolate and affected systems during a breach. Minimize the damage by restricting the spread of malware and unauthorized access. And that actually looks at in the same process already way further up the chain. Because before they are attacking your systems, so not the encryption, but actually the disabled security and backup services, we already have options for that worst case scenario. And that actually looks like this, that where we are actually containing your data, we're isolating that, we're air gapping that, and we're making it immutable. And on top of that, we are giving you a zero trust model. And in case of a cyber vault, for instance, which I'm going to talk about a couple of slides from now, that means that nobody has remote access. You can only recover by actually physically going to the rack where your vault is located. You need to have a key for that rack, and you need to start recovery physically from that rack. You cannot plug in a Ethernet cable to connect your laptop. No, you can only do that from default. So the isolated offline and air gapping is something that is only strong enough if you also put a zero trust architecture on top of that. So those three pillars are being concluded by one major topic, and that is test and recover. We have all learned from the past where we are backing up continuously, but we never do restore. We've seen customers trying to do that by putting a lot of engineers in a conference room with a stack of pizzas and say, okay, do the recovery, full company-wide recovery. It's impossible. You don't have the resources, you don't have the time, you don't have the money to do that. So you need to have an alternative how you can actually test and recover. But you need to make sure that you can conduct those frequently security drills and penetration tests also to evaluate the effectiveness of your security measures. If we're looking at disaster recovery planning, you need to foster a culture of resilience within the organization, encouraging continuous improvement and adaptation. You need to also train your staff on recovery procedures and the importance of cyber resilience. But let me zoom in a little bit more on what I just said about a vault. Next slide will be a very much crowded slide, but what I'm going to actually show you is a vault architecture. On the left side, you will have a production environment like any other, and what we're showing over here is actually also already two components of Zerto, and that is a ZVM and a VRA. The ZVM is a Zerto Virtual Manager, a VRA is a virtual replication appliance. Both are just talking to your own environment. And that way, we can actually replicate into a landing zone everything that's happening in your production environment. But that's being then pulled into the vault zone. This fault zone actually is that zero trust environment. That is an environment where you cannot get access to via Ethernet, via the network, only by going physically to the rack. So a cyber resilience vault is the complete installation of a landing zone and vault zone. But if we're looking at major incidents that can happen, it's a little bit different. And the approach is also different, because when we're looking at this installation, if production fails, how do you recover? The first step is always that you need to select apps or VMs that you want to recover. Second step will be then to select a clean checkpoint from the journal that we already have with the replication. And the third step is actually to non-disruptively test and validate your clean restore point. And you are doing that actually in the landing zone. You can actually spin up your VMs over there, your data over there, and get them back. And finally, you can then recover all infected workloads within minutes. But we also have seen it happen that the landing zone is also failing. Why? In the end, there is an IP connection between those two, because we are replicating. So what do you do if both of them are failing, production and landing zone? Actually, then we're mounting a VMFS snapshot, which was immutable in the vault zone. So we're actually spinning it up over here in that completely isolated environment. We are powering on vCenters, ESXIs, the HPE Zerto software, and VMs. Then we can recover from a Zerto journal using a clean checkpoint. Then the company has to make a choice. Do we make sure that the clean data stays over here and we're going to reconfigure this complete environment? Or are we sure enough that we have cleaned this environment and we can finally copy back from the vault zone directly into production? But you can also say, okay, I'm going to do it stepwise. I'm going to copy from the vault zone into a cleaned landing zone and then back to production.
So, Egon, we've got a question from Alicia. Alicia?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
This is Alicia from Srivan, and I'm talking to you all over from India, first off. I would like to understand, how do you accomplish this entire thing, the HPE Cyber Resilience Vault? Is that like a middleware, or it's an entirely different software that we are, looking at right now?
So first of all, the Cyber Resilience Vault, that is actually within the green lines, is comprised of hardware and software. That means that when we have compute in there, you've got storage in there, you've got networking in there, and you've got vCenter, so that means VMware and Zerto in there. So it's a complete bundle. So actually, in the past where I worked at integrators, and which was a long time ago, we always called this a white glove service, right? Rolling in a rack, which contains everything, and there's only one outgoing cable to your production environment, and everything that flows into that rack. So 100%. It's not just software, it's not just a point solution, it's a comprised solution of different types of hardware and software.
Yes, understood. Got it. Just another question. I'm really sorry. So when you said select apps here, could you just give me an idea? What exactly do you mean? Do I have to select a different sort of applications over there, or I can use I can entirely, do it for my entire system? So whatever actually, we have, everything, single thing.
That is actually simply explainable. So nowadays, we all know that if we have, for instance, an application that's internet facing, it has a front-end machine, a back-end machine, and probably in the middle, another machine with a database with data. But those three machines together form the application that we're presenting. So I'm talking about apps where I'm having multiple VMs working together. If I'm recovering 2 out of 3, the application won't work. So I can actually virtually group those VMs together and see them as one application.
Yes, understood. Thank you so much. These were all novice questions, I'm pretty sure about it, but thank you for clearing it up for me.
Actually, thank you for asking the question, because it probably has clarified a lot for other people also. Thank you.
Egon, it's probably worth mentioning, and this is to Alicia's point, obviously we're talking about cyber resilience faults, but it doesn't have to be cyber resilience fault. That is obviously the kind of the absolute maximum of what we can deliver and what we can offer to our customers and our clients. Zerto can also be offered, Egon, you might have to need to expand on this a little bit for me. It is a software layer. And
It is.
And it works on every vendor platform, doesn't it? So this isn't exclusive to
So,
HPE. This could sit on Dell and so on.
So what I'm going to do actually is expand on the Zerto
Thank you.
software, but also the other solutions that HPE is providing in 2 slides from now. So bear with me. I'm going to explain it a little bit more in depth on how we can actually solve different types of threats. I'm currently talking about the top of the line solution, a CyberVault. But we can also understand that you're just adapting or doing a phased approach on actually protecting yourself. So at the end of the day, there are more choices. But before I'm going into that, let me just illustrate a little quickly on what sometimes a cyber resilience fault results into. This is a Western bank, a bank in the Western USA, where they previously had legacy backup, and they had an estimated time of actually data loss that was anywhere between 12 and 24 hours. That would be killing for a bank organization. And it would actually take them weeks to recover because they tried to do that and it couldn't. And they stopped after 1 week of testing. So in the end, they could not pass their compliance. And also the compliance laws in the US are very strict. Actually, so strict that there's already one conviction in the US where a CEO has been convicted and is now in jail for 8 years because he was not doing his job well, and the bank got attacked. By the way, not this bank. Why? Because they bought a cyber resilience vault, and they made sure that the data loss now is at minimal. The recovery time is just hours. And by hours, I mean they can recover their full environment in just 3.5 hours. And therefore, they exceeded the requirements that they had for their compliance. But as I said, there is more. It's not just about the vault. There are different tools and different solutions that can help you actually achieve this. And I was thinking about, okay, how do I illustrate this? How do I make sure that you understand what you need to do? Because I was just talking about virtual workloads. So I made the question, is the application that needs to be protected, again, front end, back end, and in the middle of, for instance, a database, is it virtualized? If the answer is yes, then you can actually go into a vault or a disaster recovery solution like Zerto, where Zerto is compliant to a lot of hypervisors, not only VMware, it's also Hyper-V, it's also a lot of public clouds like Amazon, like Google, like Azure. It doesn't matter. Zerto is a platform where you can replicate to and from different platforms, but securing your data in this. I can research, Helen, the name of the US CEO. It's not being released officially. There was just an article that he's convicted, and there were just initials in the article, but I can get you that. That's no issue. If we're looking at an application actually that is not virtualized, so it's physical on physical servers, then we have a lot of other solutions where you can go into the backup and recovery by using, for instance, an HPE solution with Cohesity, Comfort, or Veeam on top of that. They can also do disaster recovery, but it is not on the RPOs and RTOs that the top layer has, so on the virtualized. Cyber resilience, if that is needed, again, Cohesity, Comfort, and Veeam have a cyber resilience solution that is 910 times cloud facing. So if we're looking at this and we're looking at the span of different products, it's actually on the left side, you have the fastest RPOs and fastest RTOs. So you can do that by utilizing Zerto software, just Zerto software, where you have the tier 1 and tier 2 apps with the lowest RPOs. You can also do that via the HPE Cyber Resilience Vault, where you have data isolation, physical air gapping, and again with the lowest RPO. In the middle, you have, of course, the backup solutions like Commvault, Cohesity, and Veeam, and they are running on top of, for instance, an HPE Store 1s, an Alletra Storage MP X10000, or the Alletra 4000. And if we're looking at the long-term retention, that you actually need to keep data for a longer period of time, in the country where I live, the Netherlands, that is actually 7 years of tax reasons, where you need to keep your backups. You can do that by using the Cloud Bank Storage or StoreEver. Again, that is the highest RPO. But we need to make sure that you are protecting yourself for every single every single form of tech. So looking at the broad scale of different solutions that we have, you can pick and choose. So let me recap. HPE delivers a edge to cloud and source to target production. But we need to start where the data is created. You can do that on the Alletra Storage MP B10000 also if you would like to do. And you can use also HPE Private Cloud Business Edition. We need to make sure that you have low RPOs and low RTOs for those critical apps. Again, there you can use certain software. But you also need to make sure that you securely backup, vault, and recover at speed. I'm not disqualifying one or the other. So you've got replication on one side, you've got backup on the other side. It's not an either or, it's an and solution. We need to make sure that we're protecting ourselves for multiple different issues. So you can do the Cyber Vault, you can do Store 1s, you can do a Storage MP X10000, and on top of that, you can have Cohesity, Commvault, or Veeam. Again, one is not excluding the other. They work together. And I think that's a better together solution. And finally, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, we need to economically retain data. And that is on-prem and in cloud. So again, you can use HPE Cloud Bank Storage or HPE StoreEver Tape. So, Stuart, I'm completing this very elaborate presentation. I've shown you that there is a spectrum that is from target to source and from source to target. So let's open up the floor and ask if there are any questions.
I think the big question, Egon, I think the fundamental question is you'll have customers, I guess it's a case of when you're attacked. I guess it's not an if, it's almost a when you're attacked. Do you pay the ransom? And we've hosted, we call them race to ransomware workshops where we host customers and we sort of do a simulation of an attack. We sort of role play that attack, and it's always fascinating when we do those sessions, like a 90-minute session, and we might have 3 teams of say 5 people doing this, and they all, and it really is difficult. Do you pay the ransom? If it's all on public record, if you take British Library, who were attacked in October 23. They were held to ransom by hackers, and I believe it was 20 Bitcoin, which at the time was around about £600,000. Otherwise, they had basically auctioned off their data on the dark web. British Library decided not to pay that, and obviously, I think in public sector anyway, obviously there's a zero tolerant approach to paying ransoms. But ultimately, it took considerable time to recover that data loss, and I believe, again on public record, I believe they've spent nearly £6 to £7 million to actually get themselves back to where they were on day one from that point of attack in October 23. So that's, it is a really big question there. I think Alicia's got a question as well. Alicia.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. Again, I just wanted to know and get an understanding whether I would be needing customer support here, and how well can you provide that whenever we do take a chance to go ahead with this product.
So first of all, when we are planning together a solution, we're always, after it's being sold, create a runbook. That means the response that you need to do to different types of attacks is always controlled by a runbook. In that runbook, you can decide that your company is going to do it all themselves. You can involve AMPS from HPE, and you can involve our customer support. There are different scenarios, and the level that you are actually helping yourself in is something that you choose. So within the solution that we're building for you is also the aftermath involved. What do we do next? Which next steps do we need to take? How do we recover? Who is going to do the recovery?
Right, right. Great. Good to know about that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So Egon, we've got a very good question from Jocelyn. What do you see as best practice for a company and its supply chain to work together to align cyber prevention, detection and response? I.e., should a customer mandate adherence to frameworks, insist on involvement in dry run tests, and ask for evidence protection in place, etc.? And I think this is probably quite pertinent in terms of what happened with Jaguar Land Rover in the summer, where it wasn't necessarily JLRs. They weren't particularly breached. It was actually through the back door via sort of third party and via the supply chain. What do you think of that?
So first of all, a best practice is something that is very hard to define because every company is different. But as you already stated for JLR, for instance, yeah, it came from the supply chain. But in the end, it got in. And the question is not how it comes in, but how do we respond to this? Because that's why the session is also, excuse me, is called securing within the perimeter. Because we know that the perimeter can be compromised. You can put the most high-end resources on your perimeter, like firewalls, like IPS and IDS systems. But at the end, the bad actors are very smart. And they are having one thing done better than we have. And that is they have time. They have all the time in the world to scope out how they can hurt you the best. And this is something where we're actually looking at what you're already asking for, and that is frameworks. We are giving you a framework, and we are also helping you in those dry runs where you need the task, ask for evidence, and actually that evidence is also being done by compliance reports, automatically generated in that vault, or in just the replication with Cerdo, or just with the backup on top of one of the hardware solutions of HPE. We need to make sure that we know our RPOs, our RTOs, and the SLAs that we are mandated on by the company. So all in all, the framework is not just HPE selling you a product. No, actually, it's building a foundation where you can withstand all these types of attacks.
I think with the proliferation of attacks as well, Egon, I think we always look at cyber insurance as that kind of that fallback position, in terms of being able to protect yourself. But if you look at JLR, my assumption would be at the C-suite level, at CEO, CIO, they would be very much looking at their cyber insurance and questioning what the cyber insurance of their third parties and their supply chain actually is and how that impacts. And I imagine any future engagement, that will be obviously closely scrutinized.
It will be. And actually, a lot of countries, it's already forbidden to pay a ransom because that is sponsoring terrorism. So what they are actually saying is you can pay whatever you want, but then you are liable. So what does a cyber insurance nowadays do? And the focus is not just on paying a ransom. It's also actually in negotiation with the attacker. It's about looking at the way that you are insured. And if we're looking at that way, there is a lot of fine print in a contract with a cyber insurance. That first step in this is that you need to have your recovery and your backup up to par. Otherwise, they won't pay out. Looking at the cyber bill in the UK, currently there is not a rule in there that you are forbidden to pay. But at the end of the day, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, over 50%, and a lot more actually, even if they paid, could not get all their data back. In the case of JLR, for instance, there was a group behind the attack, and that's called Scattered Spider. And scattered spider guys actually were in the wind halfway through the attack. So even if JLR had paid, they wouldn't have gotten any response. That's why they also chose not to pay. But the impact to the company was major, right? We've all seen it in the news where they were struggling to get everything back up and running. So at the end of the day, the framework is here to protect you and help you in case you have a insurance on this. But the framework has to exist, otherwise an insurance won't even help you.
Brilliant stuff, Egon. I'm mindful of time. Does anybody else have any further questions? No, Egon, if you could click onto the final. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just need to ask you this thing because I would really love to connect with you guys a little bit, ahead. Just wanted to understand, like, would I be, possibly catch you guys in any of the events or any exhibitions or anywhere else, just to understand the product a little bit more? Because I'm not currently in UK or US as of now, so I am right now in India, and my seniors would be there, so they might be able to visit you guys and see for themselves.
So, Alicia, what we can do, obviously, it's a UK-based call as such. However, obviously, HPE being obviously a global organisation, I'm sure we can plug you into colleagues based in India who can explore this further with you. And obviously, we're happy to take your details and initiate that for you. Egon, just click onto the final slide.
Yes, I can.
If anybody does want to contact us directly, if you want to scan the QR code or take mine or Ian's contact details, we're obviously happily to have further discussions with you. We are looking to do in the UK further SCC HPE Zerto workshops and roundtable discussions. But I think actually when we do the simulation, it is eye-opening, if I'm being perfectly honest. It actually does put you into the seat of a customer, a company being attacked, and we kind of role play that, and it is, the outcomes are very, very interesting. But like I say, we are, looking to do these workshops. We can do proof of concept around this, and obviously SCC and HPE have a field of experts and specialists who are happy to discuss, sort of data loss prevention and obviously cyber resilience with SCC and HPE Zerto. And yes, Jill, we can provide the slides as well.
Stuart, just to let you know, there's one more question in the chat from
Oh,
Jocelyn.
Right. Oh, sorry, I missed that. Yeah. Oh, no, I think we picked that one up. Yep, we got that one, Nikki.
Okay, apologies.
No, that's no problem at all. Well, thank you all for attending and joining us. We really hope that was useful and helpful. Ian, have you got any parting comments before we leave?
No, just a massive thank you, Egon and Stuart, for the contribution today, and for Heather for Tech UK for supporting the event. As you said, we'd like to run more of these sessions for some more topics. So, yep, look out for that in the event log for Tech UK.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Thank you so much.